Ni hao. Assalamu alaikum. Iskawaran. Did you learn some survival phrases for your students? Today, I'm going to talk to you about using the progress chart and goal setting for your students. Progress charts are based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, also known as the CEFR, as well as our own provincial English language arts outcomes. You should be using the progress chart for your initial scan of student gaps, and from there, you should be using the progress chart to choose outcomes for your students and finding lessons and activities that fit those outcomes, rather than the other way around. This is something that we're trying hard to avoid. The danger of finding activities first is that you get a disjointed smattering of worksheets and games, and this actually makes planning more difficult because each day is a one-off rather than a continuum around a theme or a goal. This is a mistake that career teachers make all of the time, so I don't blame you guys for doing it, but really knowing your students' limitations and then using the documents provided to you to overcome those limitations and to plan purposeful lessons is very important and will make your job easier in the long run. This is not to say that you cannot teach within a model or use games, but your goal needs to be purposeful. The difference sounds like this: I'm going to play Uno today because it's Friday, versus I'm going to teach colors and numbers. We can play Uno to reinforce that. Choosing your can-do in advance will also help you complete your progress charts daily or weekly, rather than all at once before they're due to come to us to review. It kind of takes all of the guesswork out of things. So you're not trying to do your progress chart at the end of the month and say, oh, do I remember that Mohammed can read fluently? I think that he kind of read fluently at the beginning of the month, but I don't really have any way to know for sure. So if I'm looking for Mohammed to read fluently all of the time, then I'm going to remember if he can do that or not before I fill out the progress chart. When I was teaching in the classroom, I would take anecdotal notes about my students so I could remember areas that we needed to focus on. I had one singular book for this. This helped me around report card time because then I could write comments for the parents about the students, and I didn't have to think back. So if I were teaching 120 students, it would be very difficult for me to be coming up with a personalized comment about where they are in their learning. But if I was looking back at my anecdotal notes, that became a lot easier. If you have access to technology, you can do voice memos for yourself or record students and listen to these later when you have more time. Letting your ELLs know where they are and where they need to improve can be really powerful. Once you determine your English learners' abilities and gaps, you can work together to establish goals based on the progress chart. So you can put these can-do statements in student-friendly language if they're not already. I find that they're pretty student-friendly as is, but if you're looking at students with really low language ability, you might want to change the wording a little bit or make it more comprehensible. You might say, I've noticed that you're not always understanding when you're reading. We're going to work on some ways to help with that. And then if you look at the A2 progress chart outcomes, there are lots of those that fit that bigger goal of increasing reading comprehension. So then with the student or alone, if you would like, you can choose what you want to work on. So for example, they may reread and then notice when they stopped understanding, and that could be a goal. So you're reading with the student or with your group of students, you're checking constantly for comprehension, you're saying, okay, I want you to go back to where you stopped understanding and then ask a question about that or overcome that hurdle somewhere. Maybe it's vocabulary, maybe it's the phrasing of the sentence, maybe it's an unfamiliar name. Whatever it happens to be, that becomes your student's goal. They know that that's what they're doing. You know that that's what they're doing. And it's really, really purposeful and targeted. As an extension activity, have students take their goal home. So you can record it somehow, write it down, send it home, and then they can make a chart or a graph or just a tick mark every time that they do the goal and they notice themselves doing it. So it can be as simple as watching one English language TV show and repeating some words or phrases. And then they could come back and ask you what those words or phrases mean, or they can just note themselves doing the repetition on their own. They could also read a cereal box and they could ask a question when they don't understand something. So they could write the question down and bring it to you, or the sentence down that they didn't understand and bring it to you, or they could just be asking questions to themselves. That's a reading comprehension strategy. You can have this home practice become a whole group activity by displaying their progress somewhere in your room. So I used to use a graph when I was teaching students how to increase their reading stamina, or the time that they could read uninterrupted. And we would work on that, and they would compete actually with other groups if you want to make it a friendly competition. So you can display a chart or a graph or a thermometer, like a fundraising activity. Or if you're mobile, you could have a jar with beans that you fill every time a student shows you or tells you that they've done this home practice. Pop it in there. And home practice doesn't have to be limited to their house. Maybe when they were in their language arts class, they were reading something and they asked a question, or they reread for comprehension. They can also tell you that. It's a way for students to be accountable for their own work, even if you're not kind of proving that they did it. But then they're also aware that this is my limitation. I'm not very good at and it's holding me back in English. There are lots of things that you can do to make students aware of their goals and also to make it a little bit fun. So if it's a competition, if you've got some visual display or a physical display of what they can and can't do, it's going to show them that they are making progress. And here's how you make progress, because it's not something that's just going to happen magically on its own. They have to work a little bit toward it. And if they know what they're working toward, that's going to be a lot easier for them. And it puts them in the driver's seat and allows them to take charge of their own learning. So if you have any questions about how to use the progress chart correctly, or there's something that you're noticing in your students they are having trouble with, and you would like some activities to support that, then please reach out to me. My email address is here. Or if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me and I will be happy to support as best I can. Thanks for watching. Happy fall.